As we look ahead to this week's budget, we are running a special series asking how you'd balance the books if you were in charge. Rachel Reeves is expected to include various tax increases, spending cuts and measures to stimulate growth. But what would you do? Would you raise income tax or scrap the two-child benefit cap? Would you U-turn on winter fuel payments? Or would you increase inheritance tax? We're asking, what would you do if you were the Chancellor? Okay, today we are starting with the topic that affects millions, benefits. Would you cut them? According to the latest figures from last August, more than 22 million people were claiming some form of benefit in England, Scotland and Wales, and it cost the government in the region of £200 billion. So how would you make savings? Get in touch. Give us a call on 0207 862 2222 and I'll speak to you in just a moment. Esther, what would you do? Would you be cutting benefits? Would you be keeping them the same? What are your thoughts on this?
I wouldn't cut the rate of benefits or the actual rate at the moment, but I would tighten the criteria for some benefits, like disability benefits. We have like 700,000 young people on there for depression and anxiety. I think for me, that's not a standard that should be met, and I think that should certainly be tightened. And also, I would try and design the welfare system so that it encourages more people to work. So I know a lot of people that actually choose to go part-time because once they go full-time, the amount that they end up making is they're actually worse off than if they go on benefits and then they work part-time and then they have the state subsidized part of their earnings, which is not what the system was designed to be. It was supposed to be a helping hand. It wasn't supposed to be a lifestyle choice. And I know people get sensitive when I say lifestyle choice, but I mean in the sense that you weren't supposed to be better off not working or working fewer hours than actually working, which, you could argue the tax threshold is still too high. We should, the tax threshold is still too low. We should bring it up to you don't pay income tax on the first £20,000 to help a lot of working people. But yeah, that's what I wouldn't say just cut benefits, because I'm perfectly aware that a lot of jobs in the country are low paid, low skilled, and that's not something that you can just pull the rug from under people that way. That would have dire consequences.
So some reform, but not cut them all. Matt?
I think in 1997, when Labour came to power, the economy is in relatively good shape, but public services were in relatively dire condition. And so that was something that a challenge Labour were able to meet by putting more money into public services. By 2010, when Labour left power, public services were in much better shape, but the economy had been badly hit by the financial crisis. Now, in 2024, we're in a terrible fix as a country, and not just this Labour government that has to try and find a way out of it, because our public services are in dire need, particularly, as I've mentioned earlier, you think of the NHS and waiting lists, but also social care. But at the same time, the economy is not in a very strong position. And as I also said, there isn't a huge amount of money, or we're told there isn't a huge amount of money to go around. So it's an incredibly difficult job that Rachel Reeves has got to do. I would probably, and I'm not an economist, I would probably borrow to invest, because we desperately need capital investment in order to grow our economy. If we grow our economy, then the pie is bigger and there's more money to go around. Probably need to raise some taxes, but I wouldn't raise those taxes on people who have least to give. So I would raise money on people who have more, not on income tax, because they promised that they wouldn't. And I'll just say one final thing. Of course, there is always the risk of unintended consequences. And by taxing the wealthy, you want to try your very best to make sure that that doesn't negatively impact our chances of growth.
Brilliant. OK, I've got my red box back again. Jane, over to you. What would you do if you were Chancellor? How would you approach benefits?
Hiya, guys. I'm actually on benefits myself. It's not a lifestyle, it's a choice. I know it's a fine line because there are people out there that do cheat and get the benefits, but I would prefer to work, but I have physical and mental disabilities. I have paid into the system for many, many years, but I think to cut them, I scrape down to my last pound when I'm budgeting. And next year, they're apparently supposed to be going up £1.50 a week. Now, how she can lower them, I just don't understand how she could possibly do that. because, like I say, I agree with Esther. There is, since the pandemic, there is a lot of young people on benefits for mental health. And I think, get them into apprenticeships, start them slowly.
Would you mind if you
Something does need to be done.
If you were reassessed to see if you still qualified, would you be offended by that? Would you find that
I do get reassessed.
Okay.
I do get reassessed with one of my benefits every few years. So, yeah, I do get reassessed. So it's not, and I am not one of those that are cheating. I literally had a back operation to remove a tumour. I've got arthritis in my knee. So, I can't stand for long. I mean,
well, and I mean, I think on that point as well, I think when I said the 700,000, mainly people under the age of 35 that are out of work or on disability benefits for depression and anxiety, they don't have to look for work. So it's long term, like they've basically been written off as, they can never work, and they're so depressed and anxious that they can never work, and so they can live on the dole forever. And I think that's not acceptable.
People don't want to live on the dole, though.
No, but I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the system, how it is designed. I'm talking about the system being flawed. I'm not talking about these people. Of course, they think that they should get. That's why they're choosing to claim benefits. I'm not attacking them. I'm talking about how poorly the system is designed, and also it doesn't look at the fact that work can actually be therapeutic. By the way, Jane works part-time, and I'm not saying it doesn't help, but I'm sure she can attest that it has some mental health benefits. That's the point I'm making. The system is poorly designed. Just
quick question, Jane. Are you nervous about the budget on Wednesday?
I am very nervous about it. I do follow politics, so yeah, I am sort of dreading it to a point of view. And just to pick up on Esther was saying, it's not a lifestyle choice. And I think that she's right, that the system does need looking at, because so many people are getting away with it when people can work, So, yeah.
Sort of stricter assessments. Thank you very much for your call, Jane. Gillian in Devon, what are your thoughts on this? What would you do if you were Rachel Reeves holding the red box?
I just don't believe that anybody on benefits should earn more than anybody that's working.
Yeah. Very good point.
That's the problem. That's the balancing act. You have to make it enough to live on, but not to be preferable to not working.
I'm sure many people on benefits say they don't get, it doesn't really get them a luxurious lifestyle. And if it got dropped anything more, then they would really, really struggle to live.
They already are really, really struggling. Look, I work hard, we all work hard, most of our viewers work hard if they're able to. So I don't think you are, but let's not pretend, as you rightly point out, Georgie, that living off benefits is any form of luxury. It's incredibly tough. We need to do what we can to encourage people back to work, but we absolutely have to have a safety net, because we don't want to become a country like India or elsewhere in the world where you go from the airport and you see people lining the streets where they sleep.
Gillian, compared to other countries, our benefits system is quite stingy. What do you think to that?
Yeah, and so are the pensioners. I worked all my life from when I was 12. I used to go and pick up eggs. I mean, that was 60 years ago. But your parents couldn't afford to give you any money then. And I've always worked all my life. I just retired 2 years ago. I was supposed to retire at 60, and then they changed it to 66. But thank heavens I was well enough. And also, I would like you to know, I had a brain hemorrhage. I've had bowel cancer, and I still work till I know perhaps I was so lucky and God gave me that chance. But I still don't believe that people on benefits should earn more than people on working.
So you think Rachel Reeves should reduce benefits?
Yeah, well, if they're earning more than somebody that's working, well, and the pensioners, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I've still got to pay every bill. I've still got to pay council tax, everything.
Yeah, very good point. Thank you, Gillian. Thomas in London, what would you do if you were the Chancellor?
Hello. Yes, I'm married to my wonderful wife, who had a catastrophic brain injury. We both had high-earning jobs, lost everything, so I have to care for her full time. And I'm concerned, coming into the budget, that they're going to carry over Rishi Sunak's suggested attack on the capability for work assessment, where they would, go after people, remove 3 key descriptors on that, which are, if the person will get into danger looking for a job, if they're incontinent or if they had mobility problems. Attacking disabled people, and they are not the broad shoulders that he said he would target. He's avoiding the fact that as a Labour government, as a socialist government, they should really be taxing the middle class. Get to somewhere like Denmark where it all works. I think the fact he made for a rod for his own back, promising to get in, that he wouldn't raise taxes, whereas clearly the majority of government money comes from income tax, and he should raise that and just not be so proud. Trying to pick the pocket of people on benefits, it's barely livable. And we live in London, it's barely survivable. Yeah. You have one crisis in a month. Yeah. We're at the last week before we get paid this next week. I've got 33p, in the bank. Okay, I've got food. I bought the food ahead. There's no fat on the duck for disabled people.
And Thomas, that's incredibly powerful, and I have a huge amount of empathy for what you say, and that's why I said in the introduction, if I was Starmer, I don't think he should break his election pledge on national insurance and VAT and income tax, because that would be bad for trust in politics. But surely he's got to find a way of taxing wealth, because we have a huge wealth gap in this country, and people like you should not be asked to shoulder more, in my view.
Tobacco tax could be one of them. I remember we had a caller from Scotland who's actually physically disabled, who said, she feels like she's at the back of the queue because she really... she really can't get access to resources or support. Her disability benefits is barely livable. And she actually made the point that, having young people under the age of 35 being on disability benefits indefinitely and not having to look for work puts her at the back of the queue. She had to go into the job centre to physically show them, because they didn't believe her. She was like, listen, I am physically disabled. So she had to get herself there. And I thought, that's so undignified. And so, I have a lot of sympathy for what he says, but that's the point. The people that actually can work, that really the system was designed poorly, that has allowed a lot of young people to be on disability benefits indefinitely. I think it's a really poor system design, and that needs to be tackled, because it's not fair on people like Thomas and his wife and, people with genuine disabilities that cannot work.
Yeah. Thank you, Thomas, very much for your call. And I'm really sorry to hear about your wife. Let's go to Rachel in Cardiff. What would you do when it comes to benefits?
I wouldn't cut benefits. I would potentially reform benefits. I'm someone in the workplace. I work full time. I've got MS. My problem is with employers not adhering to reasonable adjustments and then having to leave or being asked to leave because of that, not because I'm not able to do my job.
Frustrating for you.
It is, very frustrating. And then I find it quite offensive when people are saying that there's lots of scroungers. And, I'm already a person, every time I go onto the bus, have to explain I've got MS and because I've got invisible disabilities. Yeah.
So you think more reform when it comes to that, helping people get back to work and keeping disabled people within the workplace? I mean, that is something that Labour are talking about. So hopefully we will see that happen.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for your call, Rachel. We're going to move on now. Our red box will be back tomorrow, so do join us then.